Have any of you read Uncle Tom's Cabin?
We read it last
Well, yeah, you guys read it last semester, like 3 months ago.
Is it by Richard Wright?
No. Uncle Tom's Cabin is Harriet Beecher Stowe. Came out in 1851. 51? Yeah,
Yeah,
three.
sure.
Yeah, something like that, 51 or 52.
And was an abolitionist novel. Was intended as an abolitionist novel anyway. And Stowe was writing about the horrors of slavery in the South, and follows two main characters, essentially.
Yeah.
And who are our two main characters?
Uncle Tom, and I forgot the other, it's a man. Another,
Well, there's George,
Isn't it Eliza?
Eliza.
Her name?
Eliza.
Because it reminds me of that song.
So one older male slave and one younger female slave, who start out being owned by the same family and then end up on very different paths and end in different places. At the end, Uncle Tom is dead. Eliza has made it to Canada with her husband George and their child. It was a sensational novel. It was a meteoric success, sort of apocryphally. Abraham Lincoln met Harriet Beecher Stowe and said, "So you're the little lady who wrote the book that started this war." So some people credited it with starting the Civil War and bringing about emancipation. But Harriet Beecher Stowe was from Connecticut and had been to the South precisely once.
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Wait, what?
Didn't she and her husband live in Cincinnati? Which is,
At one point. That's
Yeah.
Ohio.
okay, but I thought that was as close as she
As she
ever
got to the South. I think she went into the South once
Okay.
on like a trip. And most of her knowledge of the South was collected from other people's stories and from things she heard in abolitionist circles, because her family was involved in abolitionism. And her father, Ward Beecher, wait, no, that's her brother. Sorry, father, was a famous preacher in sort of the awakening.
I thought it was it an offshoot of what Puritans became?
Well, everything in New England is an offshoot
Shoot
of the Puritans.
Yeah.
But they were also, yes. So descended from Puritanism. So her writing about the South was based on other people's experiences and other people's stories, not her own. She wasn't a Southerner, so a lot of people took issue with that. And her writing was very sentimental. It's all about emotions and using emotions to persuade people that slavery was terrible. Because of this, some of her characterizations were very stereotyped or cliched, or that's how we see them now. Also, over time, the book helped produce cliches. So it was engaging with already existing stereotypes, but then also helped cement future stereotypes.
Of an Uncle Tom.
Like the Uncle Tom, who, as Christy said, was very obedient. And despite his desire to return to his family, to return to his wife, despite his sadness that he was deprived of his freedom, because he was promised freedom by the family that originally owned him, but then they came into dire financial straits and had to sell George and Eliza. Despite his dedication, despite his religious faith, and all of the tests and trials he was put through, he always did what was asked of him by his white masters. And so he's kind of a saintly figure of patience and endurance for Harriet Beecher Stowe and for the novel. But after the book was published, Tom's character was immediately criticized, and over time has become, calling someone an Uncle Tom has become kind of a slur, an insult, to say you're just doing what the white people want you to do, or what the people in power want you to do. So Richard Wright has sort of picked up on that in calling the book Uncle Tom's Children, because we have to ask whether there are Uncle Tom characters in the text, but then also think about who the children are, and if the children are the people that Richard Wright cares about, then was it necessary to have Uncle Tom to give birth to them? And of course, there's also just the basic generational idea here that Uncle Tom lived during slavery, and that his children's children are the ones who have lived through emancipation, Reconstruction, etc. And now maybe we're on to children's children in some of the stories. So we can talk about people like Reverend Taylor, like Aunt Sue, like Silas, Brother Man being Uncle Tom's children, because they're sort of the older generation. The parent figures, the adults in these stories. And then we've got the future generations represented by the young children, like Big Boy, the baby, Jimmy, Bob, etc. So there's this idea of inheritance and lineage still going through the text, of the past and the present and the future all being connected.